Well, hello, everybody. How's it going this morning? Welcome to the Bearded Bible Thinker podcast. I'm your host, Rob. And this morning, in the news, there was actually for the first time in a minute, it seems, the headline, the very first couple of things that pop up when I get into Google News this morning are not political things. They're not political things. Now, they probably will be made into political things. In fact, I've already seen it's Hurricane Laura and all the difficulty and fear factor kind of deal that's bringing, and rightfully so. It's a big deal. I've never been through a hurricane, and I don't want to go through a hurricane. I can't imagine living in a place where you have to worry about that annually, with your home being destroyed, and I couldn't imagine. The worst thing that we have to, when people move up here, it's actually funny when when the oil field is a big thing up here. It's a huge part of our economy, and we always have people from other states who come up here for oil work, who come up here for jobs, and they get up here. It's a lot funnier when they get up here in like August or September, and they're like thinking that this is going to be just a great move, no hiccups, and then they hear from people, "Hey, bro, do you have a coat? Like you've got more than that jacket, right?" Because up here, we have temperatures in the wintertime that get 20 below, 30 below, 40 below sometimes. It happens. There's usually a 1-2 week period, sometimes longer, but a few weeks, part of a month, where usually like the Christmas to January time frame, where it just gets super cold. And we get a blizzard here or there. Nothing like the lake effect snow in other states and the mountain snow that they get in other states, but we get some snow. But the point being, if all that I have to deal with is some uncomfortable stay in the house level temperatures for a few weeks a year and a blizzard or two, then I'll keep it. I can't imagine living in a place where I'm constantly have to worry about, as a homeowner and a dad of a family, where I constantly have to worry about hurricanes coming every year. So, but heart goes out to all the people that are down there. It's a really difficult thing. I can't imagine. Like I said, I can't imagine being in that position. Hurricane Laura bringing catastrophic storm surge to parts of Louisiana. Made landfall overnight near Cameron, Louisiana, bringing catastrophic storm surge, extreme winds, and flash flooding to portions of the state. The National Hurricane Center said early Thursday. So that's the National Hurricane Center. I don't know what they are. I don't know if that's a .gov thing or if it's like nonprofit or what that is. But so it was Category 4 and is now made landfall in the Gulf Coast. As of 7 a.m. local time, which it just now happened here, but this is about an hour and a half ago, something like that. So this is Eastern time. So this is more than an hour and a half ago, a couple hours ago. As of 7 a.m. local time, the storm was located about 20 miles north of Fort Polk, Louisiana, moving north at 15 miles an hour. It was forecast to move across western and northern Louisiana through this afternoon and over Arkansas tonight and become a tropical storm later on Thursday. You know, one of the things that is a struggle with things like this going on is so often the politics kind of take over the news, especially lately. And so this kind of stuff takes a back seat. And the fires is another example of that, I think, that California is just burning to the ground, and firefighters are kind of at their wits' end and in need of support, and just a rough deal. And so this kind of stuff, I think, man, this belongs in the headlines. This stuff. People need to know what's going on and keep up. There are people, I'm sure, who have family members down there and over in California by these fires. I know people over in California. I don't know anyone from Louisiana, I don't think, but certainly my dad and stepmom live in Texas, so this kind of stuff is interesting to me, and I want to keep up with it as well. This is the kind of thing I think that belongs in the news. It does. It belongs in the news. It belongs in the headlines. Sometimes when you open the things up and the first news story you see is some kind of political storm that is really created and painted as such, and then it is second or third or fourth on the list. If you scroll down far enough, you can see the actual emergencies going on in the nation. And I don't know. I would like to see that reordered a little bit, frankly. But actually, I have already. I don't remember where it is. I wish I could remember the. I wish I could actually make the. Or remember the news story that I read or the cite it, but there was actually already some talk. I think it was a CNN thing that I read yesterday, but there was actually a news story that already was taking the fires and the hurricane and turning it into a political thing. And they might have had a point, but nevertheless, it just shows the deep need for news outlets and the political folks in our country to kind of turn everything into that. And I don't know. It's not cool. I wish that we could just come together for even just one thing. That'd be awesome if we could come together for even just one, hey, let's help the hurricane victims together in unison, right? Or the one article that I saw yesterday was, it was a CNN article, this one was, and it talked about Melania Trump. I think it's Melania. I don't know. The First Lady. Talked about how the First Lady spoke about coronavirus victims and was very empathetic, while her husband's, how was it phrased? Something like, while her husband's convention completely ignores it. And I thought the funny thing about this headline was the speech that she gave that was so empathetic was at the Republican National Convention. So like it was so the convention that was completely ignoring the coronavirus and the people who've struggled through some of that, that convention is where Melania Trump spoke those words of empathy and care. So it just didn't make sense. Everything's just kind of getting skewed on every side of the aisle, and we really need to be a people. Listen, if you claim the name of Christ, we need to be a people who are in prayer for this stuff, who are praying hard for every day for our leaders, because so many of them, and I realize there are those who claim Christianity in some level. Some of them claim Catholicism. Some of them claim even Protestant views. But listen, if your life doesn't measure up to that, you're full of crap. Let's just be real about it. I'm not preaching, so I can be a little bit less tactful. If your life constantly looks like you are not a believer, like if people met you, watched you, especially in a public forum where everyone sees you, if that's your life, if that's your life all the time, and no one would have even thought that you are a religious person, let alone a Christian person, if no one could have even guessed that, then you probably need to rethink if you are. So with that being said, though, there are a lot of those folks who, they might say that they're believers. They might say that they believe certain things. We know that in the political realm, it is extremely tempting to just live life and seek after that next election kind of a thing and get caught in that. Just kind of, I'll say whatever I need to say to be accepted so that I get reelected and keep my job, essentially, right? And I think I can identify with that a little bit. Well, I don't know if I can very well, but it's I'm a pastor, and pastors deal with that some too. I grew up around a lot of pastors. I was always involved, and I know that in the area that I grew up, there was this fear that some pastors had that if they say the wrong thing, or frankly, if they say the right thing, that they're going to have to worry about offending someone, and that they would lose their job. It was literally that crazy at times, that if you preach about certain things from the pulpit that people thought were inappropriate, or where you stepped on the wrong toes, then you legitimately had to worry about being fired. And so in that way, it wasn't, some of those folks really, it wasn't a lot different than the political realm, where, look, if you say the wrong thing, if you step the wrong way, if you are on the wrong side of something that the other people in your party are on, then you legitimately have to worry then about, losing your job and needing to figure something else out. And so there's a real temptation to be a politician before doing what politicians are supposed to actually do, and representing the people that elected them well. And with that, because there's that temptation, even the people who claim to be Christians, even the people who are, have to deal with that temptation. They have to play at least some sort of political game. It's a lot of strategy. It's much more difficult than chess. I couldn't imagine, right? Being in politics in that way. I wouldn't be very good at it. I'm a little more blunt and opinionated than I should be sometimes. But nevertheless, if you are a believer, you need to be praying for these people. Because whether it's the Democratic National Convention or the Republican National Convention, both are filled with people who, I'm not going to say everyone, don't hear me saying that, but there are a lot of people who are bound for hell, who are not believers, who are seeking after their own gain on both sides. And so we need to be praying for them. So just for like a minute, right? Put this side that you're on away for just a minute and actually spend time in prayer for these folks. That turns out that if you're praying for someone, and honestly praying for them, it's a lot more difficult to hate them and be mad at them. It becomes more difficult to hate your enemy if you're actually praying for your enemy's salvation. You begin to see them as a human with human tendencies and human needs and sin just like you. So it's an important thing, really is. Another thing that we need to, it's kind of the same thing. I see this headline about the Kenosha shooting. That is something that we we really also need to be in desperate prayer for that situation. And for racial injustice, things that do happen, but for racial tension that causes some. Okay, try to follow this because I'm going to say it in a convoluted way. But we also need to be in prayer for this racial tension that sometimes causes even things that weren't racist to be racist in their eyes. Now, I'm not saying this shooting wasn't racist. Nobody knows that. But that's part of my point, right? Like, before any facts come out, when all you have is a little video from a cell phone or something in some of these shootings, before you have all of the facts, you do not know what motivated it. You do not know what motivated it. You do not know the motive of someone's heart, of someone's actions. You don't. You please, if you think that you know the motives of these cops' heart, you don't. And for the other side of things, if you already think that you know the motives of that gentleman that was shot, you don't. Right? Like, we need to understand that there is a human side to all of this stuff. That until all of the facts come out, we don't know. Right off the cuff, it seemed to me in this particular shooting, it seemed to me that this fella, they had tried to take him down and he just kind of shook them off, and the cops are pointing guns at you and you're just walking away. That's a mistake, right? I mean, that's not wise when you have kids in the car. I just, if I had kids in my car, my children, my two boys were in the back seat and the cops were pointing guns at me, the very last thing I would do is walk away from them, disrespecting them, and go into my car where my kids are at. Like, that was stupid. So that's indefensible. That doesn't even make sense. That's not a good move. That's bad parenting at the very least. Okay. So that is a thing that happened. Now, it seems to me also that he was shot like 150 times. And I mean, unless it is someone who is on crack and it takes that many shots to actually get them down, which is a thing, then I that seemed like a lot, right? But again, I don't know. I don't know the situation. I don't know what happened. I don't know all the details of why the police were called, who called them. I have some of those details in my mind that have come out since, but it's not worth talking about, because the point I want to make is that as soon as that video hit, everybody already had an opinion on both sides. There was one side that automatically jumped to those racist pigs. And then there was the other side that automatically jumps to those idiots who think that all of a sudden these are racist cops, right? And I just want to make the point that both sides need to shut up, because you don't know all of the details. You don't know these people. You don't know their motives. Don't pretend like you do. You don't. And so what's the right move there? Specifically for Christians, what's the right move there? Is the right move to get on Facebook and start, in the comments section of someone posting an article about it, put your American flag up there and start talking about patriotism and how the government isn't racist and stuff? Look, even if all of that is true, think about what you're doing. Think about what you're doing. Maybe we should take a step back, and before we jump on Facebook with any of this stuff, maybe we should take a step back and just pray for this town who's going through this, and pray that both sides of this would have clarity, right? That the side who automatically jumps to racism without any of the facts, just a video, would have clarity of thought, that they would be given wisdom to see through this, that they would have their eyes opened in some of these things. And that the side, like, think about what this whole thing is doing to the police in this nation. Like, the police, no matter what people say on the news, the police, by and large, yeah, there are bad police officers. There are bad pastors. There are factory workers who aren't worth a crap. Right? That's true of every profession, of every kind of human. Right? That is true across the board. So the vast majority of police officers are good people who are just trying to do their job. That's the vast majority. And so if that's the case, then what we're doing to them, maybe we should be empathetic to where they're at too. Maybe that's important. I don't know. What do you think? I think maybe we should spend time praying for every side of this issue and other issues like it. We should spend, people like me, white guys with beards, right? We should spend time talking with people who think differently than us. And not just talking to them and debating, but talking to them to get to know them. Getting to know them. That seems to me to be an important thing that we're missing. So, I that seems to me to be a pretty important thing that we're just shoving off the shelf and not even thinking about. But it's important right now that we are able to have conversations. So grab a police officer in your neighborhood and thank them for their service today. Pray for them. And then grab some of your friends who think differently than you. And I'm talking about if you're a Republican at heart and you're a Trump fanatic, which is not a Christian thing as it is. And, you know, that alone might get me views on here, I guess. But yeah, if you're a Trump fanatic, grab somebody who wants Joe Biden to be voted in and just talk. Get to know them. Get to know their story. Why? What has brought them to that conclusion, right? That's important. It's important that we sit down and hear one another and think about things together, right? So let's pray for them. At the very least, if you don't know any people, well, that's another point, I suppose. But I won't talk about it long. If you don't know anyone who doesn't think like you, probably should work on that. And you can use Jesus as an example there. The very people he ended up reaching out to and calling disciples and calling to him, the people that we revere as apostles and great Christians who ended up being martyred, right? These people were all a bunch of trash before Christ came. We're in a series at our church in Matthew. Matthew was the lowest of the low. He was a tax collector. Everybody, even his own people, hated him for what he did. He took advantage of people. That's just what tax collectors did then. Took advantage of people, took more than what they owed and pocketed the rest. This is who Christ associated with and went, now tell me that Jesus didn't associate with people unlike him. People who didn't love God the way that he loved God. People who didn't care about morality the way that he cared about morality. That's almost all he did. So if you don't know someone who doesn't think like you, get to know someone who doesn't think like you. And get to know them objectively. Not so you can convince them of things, but hear their story. Hear who they are, where they came from, where they grew up, what their life was like. Get to know them. And I bet you, I know I'm a pastor. I'm not supposed to bet. I bet you that if you get to know them, what you'll find out is that they're people. I know that's a news flash, but you'll get to find out that they're people and that they need Christ, just like you need Christ. And I'm not saying we shouldn't fight for certain political things. We should. Every baby that gets slaughtered in the womb, that's worth fighting for, right? That is worth fighting. It's worth fighting to the very bloody end to eradicate that horrendous behavior. But we also need to understand that the people that we meet every day, the people that we converse with and bicker with on Facebook, those are actual people. It's not just a game that we play that doesn't hurt anyone's feelings. It's not just a game that we play that doesn't cause more division. It actually is. Look, if you're a believer, act like one. Act like one. And if I've made you mad today, then think about it. Just shut up and think about the things that I've said, please. And on a lighter note, we are now live on Apple Podcasts, so you can subscribe there. If on the off chance you're someone that has a job that doesn't allow you to watch YouTube all day long, which is, man, what are jobs coming to? On the off chance you are someone who has a job that cannot be on YouTube all day long, you now can subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts. So that is some pretty sweet news. All we're waiting on now is Google to get finished up, and hopefully that will be sooner. It's usually the other way around. So that was kind of a surprise to me when I saw that that we were accepted and live on Apple Podcasts yesterday. So pretty cool stuff. So, all right, I'm going to be finished here today. So it's almost been a half an hour. I'll let you get back to your work and listen to podcasts that have been more prepared for. All right? All right, cool. Well, until next time, thanks for watching or listening to the Bearded Bible Thinker podcast, and think about it.